Are you ready in the back?
Yes.
Yes. And who was that?
This is Sarah.
Hi,
Hello.
Sarah.
Hi, everybody.
Are you going to be our voice today?
I am with Sherry's help.
Sweet. Okay. Okay, well, it is 6 o'clock. I am proudly going to, they haven't had a gavel in front of us for a while, so I brought my own gavel. It says, David Mason, service to the Cultural Resources Board, Vice Chair 1988 and Chair 1989. And so we start with David. Okay. I'm supposed to read something. There we go. I'll try to read less and less. Okay, it is May 23rd, 2024. I'm going to call the meeting to order today at approximately 6 o'clock. Sarah, could you do the roll call, please?
Chair Akins?
Yes, here.
Oh, Vice Chair McHatton absent?
Go really slow. Yeah.
Oh, never mind.
Did you hear that, Sarah?
Yes.
Okay.
So, Commissioner Basacha?
Here.
Commissioner Sims? Here. Commissioner Walker?
Here.
Great. Thank you, Sarah.
And
Thank
two
you, everyone.
vacancies.
We will stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll give Gina just a moment to unpack. There we go. Everyone, please stand. Hand over heart. Ready to begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There we go. So let me read public communications. Public communications is the time set aside during the Historic Preservation Commission meeting for members of the public to address the Historic Preservation Commission on items of city business. Other than scheduled items, matters raised at this time may be briefly discussed by the commission and will generally be referred to staff and or placed on a subsequent agenda. Under state law, other than for emergency items, no action can be taken at this meeting. Oh, I was stalling so I could introduce our council liaison. We'll catch her as soon as she walks back. Okay, museum representative report. Should be in the very back here, which of course it is. Okay, the museum recently opened an exhibit on agriculture, whether Ojai will still have agriculture coming up in the near future. It's a fabulous exhibit. The one I found was most intriguing was that they took 5 medium-sized jars and they got the soil from different parts of the valley, and then also what that soil grows. And it went from kind of light gray to very dark, to which I thought Tony Thatcher needed to add more black to his soil. So a lot of different things. People have been interviewed from throughout the valley, different ranchers. It has a nice balance between current events and historical events. We have a lot of history in the valley. It ranges on everything from the different crops that are here, that have been here over the years. It has a lot of information that comes to the workers that actually come into our valley from other regions to be able to pick crops, and how Tony Thatcher pays them whether the crops show up or not. So good to know, good things, good exhibit. And so the museum is open Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 10 to 4. We encourage you to come and enjoy it. Hat off, hat back on again. Okay, consent items. Minutes for the April 11th, 2024 meeting. Okay. Next time the museum fundraiser will be selling packets to the HPC members. Okay, draft minutes. Any corrections, any questions, any adjustments?
Oh, I do have
Yes.
one under the disclosure of site visits. I did go visit the Lavender Inn, but I didn't talk to the owners.
Oh, and spoke to the owners, didn't speak. Okay, thank you. Okay, great, thank you. Anything else? Let's see, I just had a question on the first page. Under roll call, down at the bottom, it says staff present, following were present in person: Mara Macaluso, principal planner; Sarah Camilli, planning aide. And is Sarah also planning aide and principal planning and building technician and secretary, or did we leave Sherry out?
Yeah, it looks like Sherry was left out of that. Thank you.
Okay. I was like, that's a really long title, Sarah.
Right, yeah.
Sarah.
She's the principal planning and building.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so the other thing under public hearings, Mark Whitman, architect and representative for the owners, addressed the commission and explained the detail of the paint job. Mr. Whitman answered the commission's questions. I don't know whether we want to delete that or if there's somebody missing there. There was the gentleman that was on the phone. Was that at that meeting? No, okay. I think we just remove and. Does that make sense to everyone?
I'm sorry, where are you?
Under questions for staff, the second line,
Page 2?
page 2,
Okay.
says, Mark Whitman, architect and representative for the owners, addressed the commission and explained the detail of the paint job. Mr. Whitman
Oh,
answered the commission's questions.
get rid of the word and. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Any other changes, questions, anything else? Do we have a motion to approve?
So move.
Okay, motion by Mr. Walker, second by Chair Akins. A roll call, please.
McCatton,
Yes.
Bisacha,
Yes.
Akins,
Yes.
Sims,
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Great, thank you all. Okay. That's item number 2. The next item is structures of merit, and I just had some thoughts I wanted to go over before we got going on that. We started this process last year at our June 8th, 2023 meeting. Item number 5, requested by Chair Akins and Commissioner Walker, receive a presentation by Commissioner Walker and discuss the historic structures of merit. In that time, we have spent much time clarifying the guidance that drives this process. Based upon some email exchanges since our last meeting, not in the record, we are still having disagreements. It has been reaffirmed that the City of Ojai Historic Preservation Commission operates under the direction of the City of Ojai Municipal Code. There are perhaps state and national guidelines which may have been adopted by the City Council and included in the code, such as the Secretary of Interior Standards, Attachment B, page 4 of 8. However, it is not in the code, and when unclear, if interpretation is not provided by the City of Ojai Legal Counsel's Office, it will not be our guide. In the past months, a 3-part instruction has been provided with 3 of our current members, Gina, Loran, and myself. In this class, we heard from Scott Watson, Historic Preservation Officer, City of Riverside. Riverside has 148, and you'll see in the packet that there's information that came from Riverside, some of which I'm going to quote in just a minute. Riverside has 148 landmarks, 843 structures of merit, 13 historic districts, and 4 neighborhood conservation districts. Starting preservation in 1968, they are one of the early adopters per Scott. In answer to a question to Scott put forth by myself about Riverside's identification, review, assessment, and possible recommendation, especially in handling owner consent, he noted in their section, code section 20.20.020, designation, which is included in your packet, application paragraph, attachment A, page 1 of A, which states, no structure may be designated as a landmark or a structure or resource of merit, nor may any designation be modified or repealed, de-designated, I never heard that word before, without the prior written consent of the owner, unquote. In watching the meeting this morning, that meeting, the replay, their HPC equivalent recently had a meeting with council to discuss owner consent. Sorry, I did not have time to hunt down and watch the meeting. This was a meeting between the historic preservation people and the city council. I have also included attachment C from a guidebook. In that discussion between the historic preservation and the council was the continuation of the owner's consent, that paragraph. And so there was in the meeting that the three of us attended, he said there was, a lot of information back and forth a little bit. Let's see. I've also included attachment C from a guidebook by the California Office of Historic Preservation, their guidance, and discusses owner consent on page 2 of 3 on the attachment. I did not see a date on this document. Included in our HPC package is other supplemental information, but not directly applicable, which is included in attachment A. So a lot of the information you got was because we have guidance from our principal planner that unless it's in the package, we can't discuss it. And we've clarified that. I've clarified that with Mara. So Code 4-8.05 of the Historic Preservation Commission functions and powers state and evaluation. The Historic Preservation Commission or Community Development Director may is a key word to me, investigate any structure in the city. And later, if the conclusion of the Historic Preservation Commission is that a historical structure of merit does exist, which meets the criteria established in this chapter, and should be declared as such, the Historic Preservation Commission shall make its recommendation to the council. So again, it's whether the commission deems that it's a structure of merit. That's in the may question. And then once they have deemed that, that's in the shall question, that we shall pass that along. This goes along with some communications that we might have received in the past weeks. Okay. So to me, it is clear that looking at structures of merit by the historic preservation is a may investigate, not shall. Those of us who participated in 3 webinars recognize the owner consent is a highly debatable threshold. I will tell you, through all of the different meetings and all of the different examples, the one thing that everyone agreed on is structures of merit is a hot potato and a political item. Some cities that were represented by presenters such as Sacramento do not take into account owner consent. Even the presenter from Sacramento shared that that may not work in other entities. In fact, we saw portions of the presentation. They were just crazy. If you had somebody who disliked sites of merit, that council person would get a 90% approval threshold. And so one entity did not pass that threshold, and so they turned around and filed for a national landmark and got it. Thought that was kind of... The comment has been noted multiple times that the owner cannot just say no to having their property recommended into a structure of merit. That may be true at the beginning. However, if an owner does not consent, they have the right to file an appeal with the City Council of the HPC's recommendation. So the owner eventually can say no. The council is not mandated to support our recommendation or even to prioritize it among the planned goals. Some questions that I have. Do we want to continue to pursue a recommendation? Again, we've been working with this for 11 months now. Do we want to continue to pursue a recommendation to the council of structures of merit? Can we agree to what guidelines per Ojai code and legal counsel directions are? If we choose to go forward, would it be with or without the owner's consent from the start? Whichever path chosen, what would be the steps going forward with the potential goal of recommendation or no recommendation to the council? Would we proceed without the owner's consent from the beginning? Would there be any reaching out to the parcel owners? What would that involve? So those are my observations in taking into account, again, a review of the code based on questions that I received from multiple venues. And so, I just leave it with those questions. I'd like to, I almost was going to joke, did you bring your jammies here tonight? I'd like us to make some decisions, and put out our thoughts. The one thing I didn't point out is for those that are paying attention, we canceled a meeting 2 weeks ago. That meeting was canceled because, for two reasons, or it was actually for one reason. In our last meeting, we all wanted to get together, and each of us, or many of us, had multiple vacations that were in May, June, July. And so in wanting a special meeting, which this is called, that's how we came up with it. And I like that thought that we would just move our meeting to 2 weeks. So, I'd like to hear everybody's thoughts. I'd like to see where we are in what our steps going forward are and what direction they are and what efforts we want to take in getting that done. If that means reaching out to individuals, who is going to do that? Let me tell you the other thing that I'm proposing is that we adjust the ad hocs. You may have heard that Sonia Francina resigned, I think it was April 17th, and due to a conflict that she had. And so I am proposing that we adjust the ad hocs with Craig and Rick remaining on ad hoc number 1, and Gina and Loren on ad hoc number 2. And I plan on dedicating myself to the Downtown Historic District, as well as supporting any work we're doing or may decide to do on the structures of merit. Again, we only have 5 members right now, and so we can't have 3 on an ad hoc like we did before. Yes?
Just also, whenever is appropriate, I can open the item up with the staff report that just
Yes, please.
states also what you're going to vote on tonight. Are you ready for that?
I am.
Okay, so.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. So structures of merit is on the agenda tonight for discussion, and so all of this is fine. However, one of the recommendation that's in your packets tonight is to review, update, and discuss the ad hoc committee progress, and which Chair has just been doing, and then also to vote on a recommendation for the City Council for the process that you want to go forward regarding property owners opting in or opting out or not, which is something that the Chair has just been talking about, and talking about the City of Riverside. So ultimately, that's one of the things that you'll be voting on tonight. And what you're voting on, again, is what's going to be recommended to the council, not how you're going to do it. You're going to recommend the way you want, then the council will make that determination. And then that can get to the council in a couple of different ways. One is when the structures of merit, if and when the structures of merit goes to the City Council requesting adoption, or as a separate item, just on its own through staff. I guess really those are the only 2 ways.
And that would go through you?
That would go through me.
Okay. Do you have a time frame on when I know you're quite busy, so.
No, and, well, and it's not, it's their calendar more than it is mine.
True.
So, but, they have a laundry list of items, and so I can't tell you when it would go. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I mentioned too, having been in recent city council meetings since our new city manager came, they have set goals and priorities on those. And so when we come into them, we need to be aware that we won't know where we might fall in our request to the council in those priorities. I will tell you that we were fortunate to get the commissioner guidelines. I say that with a twinkle in my eyes. In place so that we could appoint our 6th commissioner, and that item was not on their agenda. So sometimes you're fortunate. So just as a matter of information for everybody. Okay, thank you. So I would just like to hear people's thoughts on and that's why we're here, on the structures of merit, and, maybe some guidance on those questions on what is the path forward. We, just a matter of information, and when I came on the board, on the commission, September 11th, 2014, Craig and Terry Hill were doing a presentation on the structures of merit, fine presentation. I think the presentation has gone before the council twice before, Craig?
2 or 3 times.
Yes. So, just to back up. So, who would like to speak first? Gina, did you want to say something first? Vice Chair?
I'll speak first.
Okay, great.
Well, Craig and I were just discussing today in one of our little ad hoc meetings about how we were keenly interested in moving this forward. So it's as though you tapped into our phone call somehow. And we were reminiscing about how it seemed like we were ready to put this forward to the city council a few months ago, and this is just sort of a review, we had several concerned members of the public in the audience, and Gina had an idea that we should look at their concerns more closely, and I seconded that. And I don't really remember the exact details of that because I don't have it in my notes for some reason. But it just kind of put a stop to the whole forward motion of the thing, because it seemed imminent to me that it was about to go forward. We'd had these presentations, this thing has been on our docket for a long time, even going back when I was here 4 years ago. So Craig and I were discussing that, and had you not brought it up, we were going to bring it up, although maybe not as well as you did, I'm not sure. But so yes, we are keenly interested in moving this forward to the city council, and maybe even letting them hash out some of these issues that are vexing us, you could say. And I know there's controversy, and it seems like the crux of it is at this thing of the permission, giving the permission. And of course, and the way you laid it out kind of makes sense about how you identify the sites of merit, but the individual owner might approve that. It just seems that a historic building is a historic building. You can't change that George Washington slept. Like on the East Coast, there's like these plaques. George Washington slept here. For us, it might be John Charles Fremont slept here. But, we can't change that, except what's changing is the possibility that our landmarks over time are going to be affected. There's an example. Craig and I were in an informal group just talking about, it was Libby's chef's house up on Foothill, which is a red house up on, is this your house?
No, I owned the house across the street.
Oh.
The Gate House.
The which one?
The Gate House.
Oh, okay.
We can't hear the audience member.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'll invite you to come to the podium, please. Just please state your name.
My name is Laurel Moore,
Okay, thank you.
and I own the Libby Gatehouse I own 2 historical properties in Ojai. And with the Libby Gatehouse, I went to get it put on I went through the Mills Act and had that, done. And then I bought Bill Baker's Bakery and made it into Azu Restaurant, which is now the Duchess. But I'll sit down now because I know you guys have got an agenda or following a list
Great.
here.
If we have more questions, we'll
Yeah.
reach out to you. Thank you, Laurel.
Well, anyway, just to finish my train of thought here on this, it feels like there's more urgency than before. So anyway, this group of ours was talking about this house, which is a red house up on North Foothill, in the area that our guest is talking about, and what one of the members of our group actually had her artist studio in that place for years in this house, which was built in, I believe, 1910 or 15. So I swear it wasn't 2 days after this, I'm driving up there, and lo and behold, a fence is being built around the entire, at least the part of it that would block it from North Foothill. And it appears to be 6 feet high. So at least in my mind, I'm saying, wow, we were just talking about the protection of this house, even though it's not on any list now. It would be something that could possibly be a candidate for the Sites of Merit list. And here's a fence going up, which will effectively possibly block the view of it in an area that was actually originally designed to not have the views blocked. And it was supposed to be like an open landscape. So I'm just trying to make the point of this urgency thing, and I don't personally draw any big conclusions about what we should do, but I do think we need to be more assertive about moving forward on this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Before we move on, I just want to, when do you think would be a good time to read the one-pager that you did? Gina?
Well, to answer Rick's question, the questions that Lorraine and I had were based upon, okay, if this is going to have teeth in it for homeowners, then what exactly are we asking of the homeowners, and what do they have to do, and when do they have to, what are we putting in front of them, what obstacles? And if we are putting obstacles, what are we able to give back to them as a benefit? And we didn't have those answers, and that is what stopped us. And I believe that through a lot of conversations with our California officials and looking through code and learning, I think and finally coming up with the California Historical Building Code agreement, I think that we understand a little bit more about it. So I was asked to do a one sheet, so when Lorraine or whoever goes out and talks to people, or if we send it out, we explain what it is a little bit more. And so that's in our packet to talk about tonight. I know that Craig had some thoughts, but I didn't review them yet until we all had a chance to talk about it together.
So before you read this, I just want to make a point to whoever may be watching that, and it's been my thrust all the way through, is that, and again, it comes from going through, spending 9 months going and interviewing all of the people downtown. We were asking them to do something, and then we were telling them, what are the advantages, what are the benefits that will come to you? And so my thought has been to try to find ways to show them or to demonstrate to them that there are benefits from wanting to be a structure of merit rather than just because they're an old house. And one of the key things that, and as Gina mentioned, what really got us inspired was Mara went to legal counsel, to Matt's office, and inquired about the use of the California Historic Code?
It actually has the "col" at the end, which is always hard for me. It's the California Historical Building Code. I always want to just say historic, but it's actually
Historical. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm like, what's that? Cool.
Cool.
Okay, so the California Historic Code building code. And so in talking with Gina about the one page, I had asked, could you please tell us what the California Historic Code is and what the benefits are? Because I think they're substantial for somebody who's all of a sudden needing to make changes to their house to basically, sorry, city, tell the city people, pound sand, I'm using the California Historical Code. You know, in whatever it may come up with. It's just one of the little caveats in there. No derision to our people because they're not that way, but, so
I
let me
would-
go ahead and have Gina read that, Craig,
Okay,
and then
and I would like to add that when I
Gina?
did reach out,
Gina, I'm sorry, but I have a medical condition and I'm trying to amplify the sound with these
okay,
earbuds, but between the plexiglass
yeah.
and your mask, I'm having a hard time
So,
hearing.
my
what you
my
say.
husband was just diagnosed with COVID, so I want to be extra careful for you guys. That's why I asked her to put the plexi back on, and I'm wearing a mask. So I've just shared the last week in a very small Victorian room with him, so I'm not hopeful about myself right now. So I'm just trying to keep you guys.
Well, it's difficult for me because I can hear everyone else, but I can't hear her because the combination of her mask and her,
Perhaps somebody else should read, or you could read along because it's in your
Yeah.
packet. It's,
Craig, it is attachment D, page 1 of 1.
is that the final one that you did?
I didn't make any changes because it was in the packet.
See, okay.
Yeah, again, attachment D, page 1 of 1.
of
So-
item 2 on the agenda.
Okay. Also, when we were doing this research, I reached out to Maura and then to Sherry, and Sherry reached out to the building, somebody. We found out that no one has asked to use this, because I wanted to know what happens when you go to the front desk and you ask to use this, and there, no one has. So I think that this was specific to the structures of merit, but I do think, I'm going to bring this up later in commissioner comments, but I would like to come back next month with one for all of our landmarks, just so they know, because I think now that we know that our landmarks can use this, I think it's our job to let them know it exists in case they don't. So I would like to do that, but I'll bring that up later.
Yeah, and I also want to clarify, so I'm in planning, I'm not in the building department, so nobody would be talking to me about what kind of code they're using through the building permit process. And I think what the response ultimately was that it's something that's addressed or brought up during a plan check process, which again is not in the planning division, it's in the building division. And it's after it's gone through all its discretionary permits and the plans have been submitted into the building department for permits, building permits. And then through the plan check process is when the historical building code would come into play, or not. So I just wanted to clarify that. And it's not something that I can even address any further than what I've just said, because it's not my, I don't know anything. I don't want to say I don't know anything. It's just, it's not what I know.
That's a good way to put
It's
it.
not in my division. It's not for you either. I mean, not that the historical building code isn't something that you want to talk about and that's not important for landmarks and potentially structures of merit, but it's not something that we would be discussing with applicants that come here, because we are not in the building division. You are not in the building division. Okay?
Got it.
So and
Always looking for good things for everybody. That's what we're doing.
that's what you're doing, yes. Okay.
So this is the Ojai Historic Structures of Merit. What does it mean to have your property identified as a historic resource? Well, whether you are just finding out now or you've known for a while, your property is special to the city of Ojai. Most often it's because it's part of a story of the history of Ojai. This means it could be because the architect that built it, the era it was built, maybe it's the first or the last of its kind or the best example. Or possibly there's a cultural significance. Did something happen there? It is the responsibility of the Historic Preservation Commission, the HPC, the County of Ventura, and the State of California to identify and maintain a list of resources important to our city and our county and our state. Well, if it's considered a resource, what do I have to do? Nothing. If you don't plan on tearing it down or removing character-defining features from the exterior structure, then there will be no difference. Won't this create more red tape in doing anything to my property, more time-consuming? The HPC's only concern is the exterior of the historic structure. What you need to do in regards to maintenance, updates, outbuildings, repairs, plumbings, etc., will not trigger any visit to the HPC. As a historic resource, the only concern is that it's not demolished and the exterior historic structure's defining characteristics remain. Will having a historic resource affect your property taxes and assessments? No. Whether your property is on the Structures of Merit list or if you decide you would like to landmark your property, it will not be reassessed. Isn't maintaining a historic property expensive? Well, all costs are going up, from materials to labor. The HPC has confirmation from the state of California and from the city of Ojai that all properties listed on the Structures of Merit landmark contributors to historic districts will have access to the California Historical Building Code, the CHBC, which can make repairs, alterations, and rehabilitations more cost-effective. Successful preservation is a two-way street. By caring for a historic resource, it is important that property owners are given support to offset costs and provide financial incentives. What is the California Historical Building Code? It's one of California's most valuable tools for the preservation of historic resources, and it's part of California law. The CHBC is intended to save California's architectural resources by recognizing the unique construction issues inherent in maintaining and adaptively reusing historic resources. The CHBC provides alternative, more lenient building regulations for permitting repairs, alterations, and additions necessary for the preservations, rehabilitation, relocation, related construction, adaptive reuse, or continued use of a qualified historical building or structure. The purpose of the CHPC is to provide alternative regulations to the regular code for the structural safety of buildings designated as qualified historical buildings on properties. The CHPC is enforcing agencies to accept any reasonable equivalent alternatives to the regular code when dealing with qualified historical buildings or properties. How do you request use of the California Building Code? Once your property is officially recognized as a City of Ojai Structures of Merit by the City Council, you or your contractor can go to the City of Ojai for any building-related matter and let them know that your property is on the approved Structures of Merit list and ask that the CHBC be used when they consider your request. This can ease the burden of bringing your property to current code requirements. This request will not need to come before the HPC. Are there other benefits from being on the Structures of Merit list? The property owner could choose to have an official plaque to acknowledge its historic status. Where can you find out more about the California Historic Building Code? You can read more on the government website, and there's the link. What if I have more questions or concerns about the Structures of Merit list? Well, you can contact Maura with her contact information, and someone from the HPC will reach out to you quickly. And that's it.
Excuse me, just something that wasn't put on here, just respectfully, this wasn't, and it wasn't supposed to be, but I just want to make sure, because normally we would put a statement on here that this hasn't been vetted, reviewed by staff or legal counsel.
Right. I put draft on there,
But even so, because even when it's not a draft, it's not going to be something that's reviewed, researched and vetted by staff or legal counsel. This
Got it.
is coming from the HPC.
Got it. Yes. Sorry.
That's okay. That was on me to put it in here.
Great. Thank you, Gina. So while we're entertaining our other thoughts, I'd like us to be thinking about the value of something like that going out to the people that we're sending the notification of this meeting out to the parcel owners, to say, hey, this is information we think that would be beneficial to you and helpful for you to know.
Well, can I say something?
And thank you for doing that, Gina.
It certainly does seem true for members of the public that have come here and even the letter that was shared with us today from a homeowner that there's a lot of misunderstanding about this whole thing. And it's in the misunderstanding that it kind of falls apart. So that's on us, I guess, and also for the public to learn about it.
Agreed. Loren, Craig?
Go ahead, Lauren.
Well, I have real problems with letting people opt out. I think that we are a board of people that is here to gather information, to recognize those properties that are important, that fit into these categories, and to refer them on to the city council, who then has the duty to decide whether these structures, buildings, pieces of property are going to be considered. It is up to the homeowner, the landowner, to, if they don't want to be part of it, like the letter we received today, to show the city council, not the HPC, why they don't think they should be included. If we let people tell us that they don't want to be part of this, we are not going to be able to save many of the buildings in this city. And I'm very concerned about that. People don't understand. People don't want to be told what to do and how to do it. I don't like to be. But at the same time, this is a special town. I mean, you talk about Riverside, that's a huge city. This is a small, tiny little hamlet of a place, and we have an awful lot to protect. And if we don't start protecting it, we're going to lose it. And we can't start asking people if they want to be part of it. If they're recognized that their properties are important, then they need to be included. And it is up to the city council to decide whether they will be in the final list or not. I think that's where I come. And I think that the city council really needs to give more deference to these structures. I think we need to be granted time to talk to them, and they need to put this up higher on their list of things that need to be dealt with. I find it more important than a number of the items that they talk about. That's coming from me. I've lived here almost my whole life. I've been into most of these homes. I know or have known a lot of the owners, and I am really afraid we're going to start losing things. The state of California doesn't care, and I'll leave it there.
I
Great.
have
Thank you.
I haven't
Go to
spoken
Craig
yet.
first.
okay.
Thank you.
Yes, Craig.
Yes, it was a year ago that we appeared with the city council at our joint meeting, and we presented the structures of merit, some of the ones that we were recommending possibly for inclusion on that list, and we went over the law and what's required by the law and what it contains, and the city attorney answered questions about that. And so he was there to talk about what the program is and how it works. And at the end of that discussion, the city council said by a 5-0 vote, send the list to us and notice the meeting so that the owners will have a chance to come and speak and share their thoughts. And I think all we're wanting to do is follow the law. There is a law that the council passed only 5 years ago that set up and refined the structure of merit list. And that was vetted by the city attorney. It was discussed at length by this board, and it was discussed at length by the council, and it was passed. And I think all we really need to do here is follow that law. I don't know why we're going down the rabbit hole of having to compare ourselves with Riverside. I mean, I would love to switch places with Riverside and have their historic preservation ordinance, because even though their structures of merit, I mean, you have to understand that every city has their own way of doing it, and you can't pick out 2 or 3 sentences that say, well, we have owner consent for designation when that doesn't tell the whole story, because underneath the designated historic properties is a whole process for protecting undesignated historic properties that starts with a comprehensive survey that's taken of every property. And every property they have on staff a full-time historic preservation officer that goes through and analyzes these results for these properties and comes up with what's called eligible historic resources. Those are not designated by the council, but they are set up through the their Historic Preservation Board, and also their Historic Preservation Department. And they have what's called a certificate of appropriateness, where any alteration, any work, any demolition on one of those eligible as well as a designated historic resource must have approval by the HPC for that work. It has to have a certificate of appropriateness given by the group. So they have a whole system set up for protecting those properties that haven't been designated or aren't designated, but are still meet the criteria that the city has for what makes a property historic. Ojai has its own criteria that we are expected to follow. So there's a process set out in the historic ordinance, the law of Ojai, that says that there's these criteria that the property must meet, and if we find that they meet those criteria, just one of those criteria, actually, that we will then recommend that to the council, and they're the ones that make the decision as to whether to designate that property or not. Now understand, Ojai's whole system rests upon designation. We don't have all this other stuff underneath to protect these historic properties like the one Rick talked about. The city does not recognize Edward Libby Chef's house that was built in 1915 across from yours, doesn't recognize that as a historic property. So if a application came in to demolish that building or to alter it, the city would not recognize it as a historic property and would allow the demolition or the alteration to go through without any review whatsoever. I think all this does with the structures of merit, when a house is first built or a building downtown is first built, there's a whole process that the city goes through to determine if that property is going to meet the needs of the community, is going to fit in with the design. They have to get a design review permit. They have to see if it all fits. And the council has one coming up at their next meeting for the Lavender Inn, wants to expand. And there's a whole process been going through to get those buildings built. Well, now fast forward 75 to 100 years, and that building has taken on historic value and helps to define the character of the town. I mean, our historic buildings really do define the character of our town, including the Duchess and a lot of the other buildings downtown. And so what the Structures of Merit says is that all that is required is if a request to demolish the building or significantly alter it comes in, it will be reviewed first for historic impacts. That doesn't mean that the property can't still be demolished, and that's one thing I would change in your writing, because it makes it look like if it's a structure of merit, it has to be preserved, 100%, like it's in a time capsule. That's not so. The old olive mill down on Ball Street that George Ball ran, and it had the old olive press in it, and it was in a survey that was done in Ojai back in 2011, it was called out as a possible historic property. But it came before the HPC and it came before the city, and they decided it didn't retain enough of its integrity to really qualify any longer, and that building was destroyed. There was a George Washington Smith house that came before this commission, and it was a landmark. Not only was it a landmark, but it was a Mills Act property, and the owner wanted to build a second story on it that didn't meet any of the Secretary of the Interior standards. It would just have completely altered the whole look of this house that Edward Libby used as a model for his homes in the Arbolada. And so the owner agreed to not build their addition as a second story, but to build it off the back of the house where it wouldn't be visible from the front. And that met the Secretary of the Interior standards, and so everybody was happy. And that's why we have these kind of designations. Question about that? No?
No, the property I'm thinking of, and that they ended up having to do a historic resources report. And it was part of the reason why we actually got the code changed, that if anyone did a historic resources report, that it then that property had to come.
No, this one was more recent. It was Spec House B that was the second house that Libby had built when using George Washington Smith, a famous architect from Santa Barbara. And it came before you, and they were a Mills Act property, which actually
That's the one in the Arbolada.
Is that on
requires.
Palomar
It's on Tico.
or Tico?
It's on a
Right,
weird.
right.
Yeah. And so everybody was happy at the end of it because the owners got to do their addition. There was some demolition, and this says we don't want you to demolish, but that's not always the case. And sometimes people can do mitigations that allow them to make changes, but they do some mitigations, like maybe they rebuild some part of the property that was lost over the years. So there's a lot that you can do, but in Ojai, if you don't designate it, the city will not recognize it as a historic property. We had a couple of examples along Matilaha Street where there were office buildings that had been listed as a Category 1 historic property in the survey that we did. Neither one of those, well, the second one did, but the first one never came before the HPC. It was never reviewed.
And the second one didn't come before us, it just sort of came before us, but it was because we were talking about the other building, not that
Yeah,
building.
and that's because the city says that because the council never approved that survey, even though it commissioned the survey and it was done for the city and the results were done, it was done by a professional group, San Buenaventura Research Associates, and was presented, the council apparently never approved the survey. So the city doesn't pay any attention to it. We never get anything for a project on a building like this one, Mr. Libby's chef's house, which is a Category 1 historic property. They weren't even going to bring the El Roblar do a historic study of that, which, I mean, what more? And finally, after we pointed out that the state had recognized it. So here you go. There are properties that the state of California recognizes as historic properties, like the El Roblar, but the city of Ojai does not. And there's just something wrong with that picture. So this structure of merit designation has very little impact on the property owners, but it does give the city the right. And to have owner opt-out, most of our landmarks have been the result of people nominating their own buildings for landmark status. A lot of homeowners do that so they can get the Mills Act benefit. But occasionally one will come up where the owner wants to opt out, but the city says, no, we think that property is important enough. The school district offices are a good example of that, where the district objected and the council says, no, we feel that's an important area of the town. It's an important historic resource, and we're going to landmark it. And I think even the Ojai Theater was one where Khaled, he didn't initiate the process of getting that building landmarked. It wasn't his idea. It came from the city. And when he saw that the city was moving in that direction, then he said, okay, I'll approve it, but I would hope you would let me keep my windows or do this. And the city said yes, they negotiated it. So I think it's so important when the council was working on the, I'll say one more thing and then relinquish. When the council was working on the Cottages Among the Flower agreement, and somebody from the audience got up and said, if you had nominated the cottages as a historic landmark, which it was eligible for, the study that was done on it said it was eligible for the National Register of Historic Places. And the Sonny Soltani, who was the lawyer, said, you know what? It was too late because you only have 30 days from the time on these ones that have the affordable housing. You only have 30 days, and that's not enough time to landmark a property. So she said, and I quote her, I almost memorized her quote, now is the time for the city to go through and find its historic properties and designate them so you won't lose more and more of these properties. So I think time is of the essence, not just because of the state mandates, but also because Ojai is an attractive place now. People are wanting to come here and invest, and it's important for the city to say, look, these are the properties that we think are important to the character of the town, and we want our town to continue, because once they're gone, they're gone.
Just a couple points. On the Olive Mill House, I heard about the Olive Mill House coming before the Planning Commission. I went to the Planning Commission meeting. They had already done a historic resources report. They had approved it, and it was far beyond it coming to the HPC for being reviewed. So the owner of the property, I worked with the owner of the property. He said when they did do the demolishment, because I'd heard there were these intriguing things in the bottom of the basement, they're now over being stored. They were architecture or wood that had been carved up in the over in Europe. They called me. He actually gave me the key to the building so that I can go in and out of it. In fact, I invited Craig to see if he wanted to come over. So by the time we caught it, it was way beyond where it could be, where we could be, do anything with it, and also was in the, I think, in the shape where it would have come down anyway because it had been not taken care of for the time frame. But so
that's a good example of where the commission doesn't always, or the city doesn't always have to save every older building.
it is.
Yeah.
It's also it was also another one of the examples to where we all rewrote the code with council members ad hoc
Right.
committee to where, again, if an historic resources report is done in the city, that property has to come.
Oh, can I say one more thing?
course.
I'm sorry. Because another foundation, you have to look at the entire picture of the historic ordinance because all these little parts fit together. And one thing that Ojai has that I don't think Riverside does have, I searched on it and a lot of other cities don't, is the ability for the local citizens to nominate buildings. So if a group of citizens get together, anybody in the city or any group can bring a nomination to the Historic Preservation Commission, and we have 90 days. We have to investigate it. And we investigate it, and we discover whether or not a historic building does exist, and then we make our recommendation to the council. But that's such an important thing to be able to have that power given to the citizens to be able to come together and save buildings that are dear to them and that they want to see preserved. But if you introduce a uh, a provision that says the owner has to consent, that completely cuts that off at the knees, because the only person now that can nominate a building is the owner. The owner is the only one that can nominate a building, because if somebody else does it, the owner can just say, no, I don't give my consent. So the owner holds the cards there, and the community then loses that ability, as does the council, by reiterating the point that the council needs to keep that ability to designate properties that it feels are important.
Okay. The other thing I'll point out is if you look in the additional information, well, first of all, how did we pick Riverside? We didn't pick Riverside. The California Preservation Foundation picked Riverside. He was the person that they brought in to talk about it. I raised the Vice Chair McCatton raised one of the questions, and then I raised the question on how they handle structures of merit. Especially, I was intrigued with how they got 828 of them, but they've been doing this again for a long time. So as not to be saying that I cherry picked, I gave you the whole section for that, as well as if you look through other pieces of paper in the package that I gave you, you'll see that there's whole complete sections so that people could see, as well as other things that share both sides of the argument. Okay, so my question then, now that we've heard from everybody, is what is the role of on a structure of merit for the parcel owner? If you're doing a landmark, we've never landmarked any locations other than one that are owned by the parcel owners, other than the school district, and there was a reason that was done. Going into the downtown historic district, and I was going to mention that when we get to the other part, but I talked to, the question was, why do we as a Historic Preservation Commission have to go out and do the survey of the parcel owners? And I raised that question. I found the best time to get legal counsel from Matt Summers is to walk in with them to the council meeting. And last Tuesday it was me, Matt, and Weston that I had like 15 minutes to query him on that. Matt did say that it is our right to go ahead and make a nomination on regardless of the individual, the parcel owners. But you know, the thing I asked him about was the downtown historic district, and the fact that, again, we went out and did a survey of all the parcel owners. That survey is called out in the code. The code says if you want to do nominate a historic district to the city council, you must go out and get 50% of the parcel owners plus one and bring that back to us.
But that's not the structures of merit, which,
Yeah, it's not structures of merit, but again, it goes to, even in that case, we have to have parcel owners' consent in order to create a downtown historic district. This, we talked in our ad hoc when there were three of us together. We each had three different ideas of districts. One of them was the state historic district. I said,
Brian, can we wait and talk about this when we get, I don't want to, I
Well, I'm
don't,
just trying to
okay, I just want
point
the
out that-
public to confuse the two and overlap them. They're two very separate things, so.
They are, but the treatment of property owners is very different.
Okay.
So in a downtown historic district, we must have participation of the property owners.
No, that's not true.
Yes, it is true.
No. If you read the code, the requirement that there be a majority that support it before it's recommended is if it's nominated. If it's nominated by an outside group. Because when you look at the code, the HPC, now the one that was at Taramina, that one was proposed by the residents. That was proposed by the people that lived there. So it was nominated by the people that lived at Taramina.
Craig, can,
Can I just finish? That one,
well, we can't,
Required-
this goes back to Gina's request. Goes back to Gina's request. I'm just trying to talk about how,
well, I know, but I'm responding to what you're saying. So
Okay, but-
let's put it off till the conversation on the historic district then.
that's what I was suggesting.
Okay,
Yeah, because I have a response.
yeah.
Again, having talked to the city attorney for the last 2 years.
Well, let's have him come to visit us. We've been asking for a year. We've
Okay,
never
so-
seen him.
So again, getting back to the role of the parcel owner. So the role of the parcel owner is, too bad, you bought the
Well-
historic parcel. You should have known that this was coming. I mean, I agree that the importance of keeping our properties, our historic properties in place and protecting them is important. That's why I go to every single meeting that has anything to do with anything historic and have predicted this would come because I've been monitoring Ventura for years. So my question then is, what do we do? What do we do? Again, the Structures of Merit has gone to the council beforehand. I was in a meeting with another council member today, and he asked me, why are you pursuing that? I thought we stopped that in its tracks. That was from the prior council meeting. So just what I was told,
Are
not
you
without
talking about structures
solicitation.
of merit again?
Structures of Merit came to that city council, and they didn't do anything.
Somebody asked why we were discussing it, who's on the council?
No, they asked me why we were discussing that.
Because they asked us to?
That council may have. You're talking about this council here now.
Oh,
So
I'm confused.
anyway, yeah, I
We're
know.
all confused.
Can I
Try being in my head, yes.
talk? So,
Anyway, I wanna know what are the people?
So how I personally see all of this is, well, like George Washington's left here sort of mentality. That's not going to change. The owner changes. The owners pass through the houses over years. What happened there, or whether it's historic, doesn't change. So that's why everyone should look at this document that was made by the San Buenaventura group that the previous council had commissioned them to do. It's outdated, that's why, I talked to the people and I asked to update it for our budget for the next year. It's supposed to be updated every 5 years. If real estate agents even had it, it's a public document. If somebody was looking at a property, you could say, well, it's a one on this list that this agency did that was commissioned by the city, and it's a one. So at some point, if you want to do something to it, you might want to look at a different house, or if you actually are interested in a historic home, we can look at the ones, and I can take you and show you those that are for sale. I think that this is such a valuable document because it allows people, before they purchase a property, to know whether or not the city of Ojai considers it a resource. So that would cut out a lot of the politics of it right there. If you have it on this list and it's a public list and it's been adopted by the city council, it would solve a lot of problems. It would also solve a lot of people from having to come here, because if it was updated and adopted by city council, the city of the San Buenaventura document, then when planning is looking at something, they can then look and say it's a one. It's this through this drive-by survey. It's a one, so it might need some more investigation before we just rubber stamp something happening, and that takes us out of it. It's a factual, non-political document that was just done by an outside agency. I think that's really important. So that is, to me, something that's really even more important, personally, to the Structures of Merit, because it covers the entire area, and it's not based on anything except, it's not based on us, it's not based on people coming and wanting it or not wanting it, but it's based on something that is a criteria that is followed all over the state, and it's respected, and they're respected, and I think it has weight to it that takes the politics out of it. I think that this structures of merit becomes political when we don't do our jobs of education. I think that if we had the facts first, we always seem to have a little bit of a problem of putting the carriage in front of the horse in this group of people, because we don't know the information until it's out there and everybody's getting upset about it. And then we have to backtrack and find the information. But if we came forward, like with this one sheet that I made, and it was like, no, you don't have to come. You know, people were coming here about, I won't be able to change my water heater, and all of these things. It was a lot of misinformation. So if we were able to get in front of that and talk about the little requirement it is to be a structures of merit, education would have solved a lot. And I think when you have states or cities like Riverside that have owner opt out or opt in, and they have this huge amount of numbers of structures on a structures of merit, it's because they're doing a much better job than we are with education, with reach out. A lot of the slides that I took screenshots of was all of how they did reach out, because we don't. We think, because it's logical for us as commissioners, historic preservation commissioners, that it makes sense to us. Of course, we're going to want to have the structures of merit list, and so we kind of get into our kind of a chamber in our own heads, a little bubble here. But once we break that bubble open and we're like, whoa, okay, maybe that's not as popular as it is in our heads, then we're doing education on our part. So now we're trying to get education out there. But I do think, hopefully, with education like this document, and with your changes, and coming up with a good document, and being able to talk to people about what it actually means to be on there. Somebody was concerned about having a plaque, and people are going to drive by, and that's optional. You don't have to have a plaque. There's so many things that another person was worried about, it having their property reassessed. That's not something. So all of these things that if we can get ahead of and we can educate, I think it would take a lot of the politics out of it. But when it comes down to it, after we do our education, we still have to do our job. And if our job says that this list is a list that we feel comfortable sending to the council, I would put the churches maybe in a possibly exempt and let legal counsel deal with the churches. But if we did send it there, that's our job. We did our job. That as commissioners, we researched, we came up with this list, we were asked to do this list, and then we send it. We educate the public, we let them know that it's really not a scary thing to be on this list. And then we let the council decide. And if, we kind of kick the can of the politics maybe to the council, but that's not our job. That's why we don't get, the big bucks to, we are doing our job to get the information. That's what we'll do with the Downtown Historic District. That's what we'll do with anything that we take on, is get all the information, decide if it's a resource, and then decide what we want to do with it. And then it's up to the council what to do. We are advisory. We don't make those decisions. But if we ignore them based on owners, then we're saying, well, Washington still up there, but now he didn't because the owner said they don't want it. But it still happened. We still have these properties. They're still made by these prominent architects. They still tell the history of Ojai, no matter who owns it. And so that is something that it's our job to put forward those things. Whether or not the council decides to let the owner not be a part of that list, that's up to council. But I think it's our job to just wrap it up, get that information out there, and call it a day, and let them decide what to do with it. But I do think we can try to educate a little better before it gets to council, because I don't want council to have to sit there with a room full of people asking the same questions. Well, isn't my property going to be reassessed? And reassessed, or what if I want to get a new water heater? I think that we need to make sure that the property owners know what's expected of them before it goes to council. but I do think that we still have to do our job.
Brian, can I make a motion?
No.
I would like to make a motion that we just follow the law that we have and the process that's in place and recommend the properties that we've evaluated to the council and let them do their job, which is to designate those properties. We've had the public here at every meeting for a year, and we've been open to discussing with them, and we've really had quite an open process as far as the homeowners or the owners are concerned. We haven't really put it out to the general public, and the code says, or our general plan actually says, that historic preservation is for the residents of Ojai, for the people of Ojai. And the people of Ojai haven't really been heard either. And I think there would be a lot of people in Ojai that would be quite upset to learn that all these properties are not protected. So my motion would be that we don't try to create something new and therefore have to send it to the council. I mean, that just seems like it's going down. And then this whole thing of doing the survey, we have a survey, this council hasn't approved it. Now, if we want to do the survey again, it's got to be updated because the state recommends that after 5 years it be updated, and that would cost the council a ton of money and be a major process. Let me
It's
just
not
finish.
a ton of money.
I think that we need to just take what we have. We've already showed those properties to the council. There was nobody at that meeting that spoke up that said they didn't want, except the school district. There wasn't anybody that spoke up at that meeting. So I think we need to move on this, and that's my motion, that we just vote to have those go before the council.
I second that.
Okay, so time for discussion. I'll open it for discussion. So in your motion, you said that you would propose that we obey the law. I would like a specific citation to the law, because the law says that unless it's in our packet, you're not going to be able to discuss it.
Yes, the law says.
Because the law says that the Historic Preservation Commission may, not that we are compelled. However, if we decide that something is historic, that we shall then present that. So that is the may portion.
Well, that's what we're doing.
Not a mandate.
That's what we're doing.
Which is a shall. So you're saying based on recognizing these as historic, as structures of merit, that we would move
A
forward.
process has been set in, there's 4 phases to the process: identification, evaluation, recommendation, and designation. We've set this process in motion, and we've done the identification, we've done the evaluation, and now we're doing the recommendation. And then it will go to the council, and the council will determine whether or not they want to designate these. They have that power. We can't tell them to do it or not to do it. It would almost be disingenuous to them to not forward the names of properties that meet the criteria. Our job is to use the criteria. If we do recommend properties, it should be based on the criteria. Was that property associated with someone who was a community leader that helped the development of the community? Was it by an architect who is a well-known? Those are some of the criteria, and it only has to be one of them. And it also should be recognized. It says in those criteria that it should appeal to, it should be for the benefit of the whole community, not just one group. Well, if you make everything just dependent on benefits for the property owners, then are you really just benefiting them, or are you doing something that benefits the whole community? So that's my motion, and
I do want to add, I just looked at the budget request. It is $10,000 to do the update to the historic resource screening survey. So it's not a lot of.
right, but that isn't what, we're not talking
Right,
about a
but you had
survey,
said
we're
it-
talking about the structures of merit.
Right, I just didn't want it to go on to record of gobs of money, whatever you said. I just want to say it's not, it's reasonable. And it is hopefully will happen as well.
Well, the more we pass this down the line and the more we do all these things, the longer it's going to take. And I can't stomach that. I can't. I've been here for 6 months, 7 months now, and we haven't gone anywhere. And I'm really upset about that because I think it's important we move forward. And I agree with everything you said.
Right, I mean, we've been working on this for 11 years, and we were told that it wasn't approved by the council because they were going to rewrite the historic code. Well, we rewrote the historic code, and it went back to them in 2019, or at least it was revised, and I don't know why the staff never took it. It's never gone to the council for their approval, so it's time it went to the council for them to consider it and approve it. Do they want to save these buildings or don't they? Because right now they don't recognize them. That's the fact. They're not like, well, they're on a list where we recognize them. They're either designated or they don't recognize them.
Well, that was my point. I think all three things, I mean, I think individual nominations and landmarks, I think structures of merit, I think the update to the things, they're all components that have to happen. So I'm not saying that doing one over another. I'm just saying that the update to that
We should do the
that
survey.
needs to be done as also. Like, I'm not saying that instead of. I mean, I understand the value of the structures of merit. I just think that we have to do our job. We can send it along and let them decide if they want the owners to opt out. I think that, and
Because
the
a
owners
lot of
have to
these
give.
buildings aren't even reviewed under CEQA, because CEQA says that any building that has historic value needs to be reviewed under the California Environmental Quality Act. And because it wasn't approved by the council, right, they
So
say it's not historic.
what about the churches, though? That do we think should we keep the churches in the same lot, or do you?
Well, I would point out to the council that there seems to be some question about religious organizations. Maura talked to the attorney, and he said that they had to object. So some of them did object. I don't know whether that counted, what was required. So I would say that the religious organizations need to be, we can recommend them, but it would be on the understanding that the city attorney would make a decision as to whether they are able to opt out or not.
So are we talking about Crotona as one of those religious organizations?
I remember
Whichever
there
ones
being
qualify according
there
to
was
the
a
city attorney.
document that said that religious organizations are
Ye-
exempt from, and so I just want to make sure that if we're putting together a structures of merit list, maybe just reorganize them to put all of the properties that aren't religious organizations first, and then the ones that are just under a heading of this might need further research to, that this with the city attorney, because we don't have a city attorney in our meeting, so we don't know that information. But
Yep.
just to let them know that we know that there is a question, but
Right.
we can't answer it.
Yeah, we did discuss this. Mara brought information forward. That information was provided to the different organizations that raised a query on that. And so I think that issue was answered in that. And I think, is there an ongoing court case? Or was it either based on a court case that took place or a court case that's ongoing? The only reason I ask about Crotona is that they came forth several times, wrote several letters to us. And one of the things I had suggested is that we allow people to designate. And that thinking is on Crotona. I go out and I ride my bike through the valley, often go up the Crotona Hill to get some more elevation in there and ride through their property, which is extensive. And if we're talking about making Crotona a historic structure or a structure of merit, what are we talking about? I mean, that is a campus, not just
Right.
a
We
single
said
entity.
in our report that we gave the ad hoc that it was the three buildings designed by Robert Stacy Judd, who is a famous Southern California architect. That would be the library building, the administration building, and the garage.
I have a question for Maura.
Thank you, Craig.
Yeah.
If we vote yes on this, that we would like this to go to council, does that stop our ability, should you reach out and to stop our education because now it's out of our hands? Or can we still let the property owners know the,
It wouldn't stop you from doing whatever you're doing. It would be time for staff to, write an administrative report and request that it be put on a calendar. Yeah.
okay.
So it's kind of separate.
Okay.
So I would be in favor of like putting an asterisk next to those and making the point that these are providing the city attorney gives the go-ahead, because some of our really historic buildings are churches.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be a great idea. Okay, any other questions? No? Sherry, vote?
McCatton,
Yes.
Basacha,
Yes.
Akins,
No.
Sims,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Great, thank you all. Okay, we will now move on to item number 3. I'm sorry I didn't ask for public comments, nor public speakers. Laurel, you're our one public speaker. It's okay if I see Mara's.
Please, we can find out from the back room. Is there anyone online
Yes,
that wants
thank
to
you.
make a public comment on this item?
Sorry.
no.
Thank you. Do we have any blue cards on this item?
No, I only have one blue card.
It's not for this item?
No, it's
Okay,
not.
thanks. Thank you.
Okay, so then I am going to regress, and I have a one speaker card. This could have been done early, so yeah, if you'll come up here, please. We brought you up unexpectedly, so just come up and I will partially introduce that this is Laurel Moore. She is a candidate, submitted her application as a commissioner. I have a copy of it here sometime, I think early last year.
I think it was towards the end of last year.
Okay. So, anyway, please.
Okay, my name is Laurel Moore, and I came to Ojai almost 30 years ago now, and we bought the Libby Gatehouse. And, listening to this group, when we bought it, we loved the historic aspect of it. I've always loved old buildings and felt very fortunate to be in that building, but it was very, it hadn't been, renovated or fixed up for many years. And I just want to say that my experience with the Historic Society was very pleasant back then. I mean, when I wanted to go, ended up having to remodel it because of the roof. The roof, that's what started the whole thing, was the roof was old shake. And the insurance company wouldn't, insure the building any longer. So I want to let you know that there was a lot of fear in me from the Historic Society, because I had this image of, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to put on the proper roof that the insurance company wants because of the Historic Society. And as it turned out, we worked together really wonderfully, and it was a great experience. And I think that's something that I could bring to this group to show people and talk to people that it's not a scary thing, and that no one is out there to essentially make you have an unlivable place. And that, and it turned out to be a great experience. And then remodeled that house. The Historic Society at that time came through and loved everything that was done. What you see now with the house, if you would go by there, and I do agree with you that you should be able to see the property. The fence, the rock wall that's there on the side, Palomar Lane, where the arch is, was to about my waist, what I built. And what had been there was just wire fencing and brush. And so we had bought the house 1 year before the big rain that happened in the past, and had a staggering amount of mud and water that came down Foothill all the way down the mountain. And there's a creek a little bit further down Palomar Lane that it was probably heading towards, but it took a direction through our property, filled up the swimming pool, took out fencing, the barn, so much stuff, and there was a tremendous amount of damage. So I wanted to build a rock fence to make that not happen, and direct the water, if it should happen again, down Palomar Lane into the little creek, which is, I think, what's happened. And then the fence, gate fence on Palomar Lane that I put in was a wrought iron. So you could see the whole property when you were walking down. And there was always issues with people looking over the fence and dogs barking. So, I mean, that's just part of the way things were. But at the end of the day, it wasn't, a scary experience for me. It turned out to be lovely. And then I went forward after that, and I thought, well, since we've done all this, why shouldn't I just do the Mills Act? Which is what I ended up doing, and hired a historian to write up, which was again, a very interesting experience. I found out so much more about the property and pictures, and initially I was like, and this was like 15 years ago, it was something like $4,000 or $5,000 to pay her, which wasn't something I really wanted to do. But then when I saw what she did, I was very impressed, and I thought it was definitely well worth it. And then, as you know, I owned, at the same time, Bill Baker's Bakery, which was...
Oops.
I'm sorry. I just wasn't sure if I was supposed to time this. I
Oh.
wasn't sure if you were just
Oh,
introducing
sorry.
her as a potential candidate.
Okay.
I was
Because we're
introducing.
not on the agenda.
Okay.
so-
Yes,
so I'm
sorry.
not
I
sure.
was introducing Laurel, and then I think we're all intrigued because I
Okay.
think most of us know the house she's talking about
Okay.
and the history behind it. I was, I learned from her the one wall was up there because where the mud flowed.
Good
So
idea. to put
And
up
the, and the
that
Bill
Anyway.
Baker house,
Yeah, and
too.
if any of you want to ask me some questions about anything, because it's not really well, anyway.
So-
So then with Bill Baker's, that was an enormous cavern of a building, and it was so you have no idea what that was like behind the scenes. And when I went to expand it to a full restaurant, we had to, you probably don't realize this, but from when you see the brick wall in there and the oven that says Duchess, that's original. But we tore out behind that. And that was all the way through to the back room, where the bathrooms are and everything. That was solid brick oven. And there were thousands probably of bricks. So we made the wall and then put the oven back and made a fake, fireplace. And then all the other brick we made on the patio in the back. So we did reuse everything. And I think most people are buying historic properties. They want to, they like that. They love it. I don't see people really wanting to go in and most people necessarily trying to tear things down. So that's how I would approach people, is like, what can we save? What can we make part of this property so that the public knows about this history, and still let you do what you need to do to have quality of life on it. And that's sort of how I approached it. And I do want to just add this one little thing that was like so crazy. When we were redoing the back of the bakery, and we were taking out some wall and we were replastering, we saw the old house. It was still inside the building. The actual old baker's living quarters had been covered up by the building. So when we were redoing the roof and everything, we looked through. It's like you're looking there, and it was so bizarre. It's like, you saw the pitched roof and all the tile and everything, and they had literally covered up an old house in there with the whole back of that, I'm sure like 80 years ago or something, long time ago.
Well, great. Thank you very much. Thank you
Okay.
for being here, and thank you for
You're welcome.
I have a question.
introducing us. Yes.
Brian?
Gina had a,
Have you ever considered being a commissioner?
Yeah, I am.
she
That's
has
why
an
I'm here.
application in.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. No, I would like to be a commissioner.
All right.
Yeah,
We-
and
we
I
just
thought
met
that
this
you're.
last weekend. So
I thought that
I
what
know.
you said and what you were reading was so informative to me, because I had no idea about and you as well. Like, a lot of the things I was uneducated about right now, until just sitting here and listening to, it's not that onerous to happen. And I think that the public, and I'm an example of that, was just, we're very ignorant of what the process is and what it can be, and that if you take the fear away, I think you'll have a lot more success.
excellent.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very
Sure.
much. Yes, Craig.
Oh,
Or did you have?
I just wanted to make the point that I think Gina made in her letter as well, that the Historic Preservation Commission wants these buildings to continue. And so adaptive reuse is kind of the name of the game. And so we don't really have a whole lot to say about the interior of a building. We're more interested in the exterior and preserving that, because we don't want to make any judgments about the interior, because we want you to remodel it and make it a modern use. So, but sometimes if it was a landmark and you as the owner said, those ovens really are historic and they should be called out in that, then you can make that an object of record. But usually it's with a conversation with the owner, what works for them.
Yep, I agree. We are unanimous in our desire to preserve this valley and to protect it from legislation from up north. And so.
Are we done with structures of merit conversation?
I am
Can I bring up one more thing?
on structures of merit.
Yeah, I just,
Sure.
so I know that Craig had forwarded some suggestions that I didn't consider or look at until we all got a chance to meet.
Commissioner, your mic is off.
Sorry. So Craig had sent to me some suggestions that I hadn't considered or looked at until we all came to meet. If I want to incorporate any of those, and we don't want to have to bring it back, can we blank copy through you the changes and have everybody take a look at it?
You can send stuff to me that I can blind copy out. I mean, it depends. I'm not sure what you're talking about, but that's how I get information to the commission sometimes.
I think
Okay.
just an update to the one pager.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
So,
Again,
and-
I don't know what you're talking about. Is there a one-pager in this that's in the packet today?
That I
in the
read, the one that I
package.
read.
And revised? Oh, the one that you've
The
done?
one that I read, Craig has made some
Right,
suggestions.
well, it's a draft, and, okay.
So even though we have voted to have it go to council, can it be on the next agenda just to go over the one sheet to make it?
Right. Just because, what's going to the city council is the list of structures of merit being recommended to be structures of merit. What's not going to the council is your outreach
Okay.
documents. That's not going to council,
All right, thank you.
Makes sense.
through me at this time.
I didn't want it to be dropped off and then never come back to talking about it again, so I just want to make sure
Yeah,
that we
and
can
if
talk.
If the commission wishes to put structures of merit on the agenda at every meeting, that, because you're still working through like outreach and such, that's fine. You just, the
Mhm.
chair will let me know what goes on the agenda.
Okay.
Okay,
I have a
Great.
question.
yes.
So if the structures of merit list go to the city council, and we can get them to put it in there soon, how do we make sure that they understand all the things that are on this? Because if they have people come before them and say, well, we want to opt out, they need to be educated to know how to answer the questions.
So one thing I want to repeat that I said before, and again respectfully, that information has not been vetted by staff or a city attorney. Number two, a staff report will go along with the structures merit list to the city council to educate them about what it is they're looking at, what they're being requested to do, and whatever else needs to go into the staff report and that administrative report, and that'll also be vetted by the city attorney.
And then we can show up at the meeting and speak to
Yes, you
to
can.
it.
Absolutely.
Join me. Okay, anything else, structures of merit?
No.
Nope. Okay, we will move on to item number 3, the Ojai Civic Center Historic District. I've been practicing that repeatedly. And we'll do it how we're supposed to do it. Or do you have a staff report?
Well, I have a sentence. You do have a 6 pages of little updates from every meeting that, since 2019 that you've been discussing this, and that wasn't meant to sound sarcastic. It's just when you say, do I have a staff report, it's really just to let you know that you're going to be reviewing, updating, and discussing ad hoc committee progress and regarding the tasks assigned, or whatever it is that you'd like to discuss regarding the proposed Ojai Civic Center Historic District designation. And other than the staff report, in your packet, you have the map, as you usually do, and there are also some definitions and other information from our code that was requested to be put in here by our chair. Did you ask me to put this in here?
Could be, I'm not sure.
I have information from our code that's attachment.
Oh, yeah,
that's
the
attachment
different
B.
code sections.
Right,
Yeah.
that's attachment B included with your staff report at this time.
Yeah. It seemed like we were maybe missing some sections. I think that was the day when your email wasn't working. So, but we'll go from there. Before we move on, I just wanted to make sure that we were okay with the adjustment on the ad hocs for the structures of merit. That was number 1 being Craig and Rick, and number 2 being Gina and Loran. We good with that? Okay, great, thank you.
Craig and Rick and Gina and Loren? Okay,
Yeah, because we're down to 5, so we can't have 3.
right.
Maura, since we've already made a decision, can we all work on that, or does it still have to be divided up into little groups? Can we all work on the outreach?
No, it still has to be, in ad hoc groups. Otherwise, there's a quorum issue, a Brown Act issue, if you're
Of
all
meeting.
together discussing and creating and
I see, okay.
proposing, working on.
Great
Yeah.
question.
And so I kind of have that question too. Until we get a 6th member, it was Craig and I working on and we lean on Craig for the history of the district. But I'm not sure if we're going to have 2 members on the historic preservation, the downtown district, if it should be,
We haven't got to there yet.
okay,
There's a rewrite on that too, on the ad hocs.
on
Is
the
that
ad
what you're
hocs
talking
for,
about?
yeah.
Yeah, nope. It's at
'Cause-
the end of the paragraph. Okay, so we'll get to that just a sec.
Okay, so with my brief introduction, I'll turn it over to you, Chair.
Okay, great. So again, I will tell you, let's see. There was a question in one of the emails I received since the last meeting. It stated, I've been puzzled as to why the HPC would need to conduct a vote of the property owners in order to recommend a historic district to council. So again, having met with Matt a couple times, per section 4-8.08, report and recommendation to Historic Preservation Commission, the Historic Preservation Commission shall, and I've cut out parts that aren't really important to cut it down, shall within 90 days adopt by resolution a recommendation that the nominated landmark or historic district does or does not meet the criteria for designation in section 4-8.07, criterion for consideration nomination of this chapter. The resolution shall be accompanied by a report to council containing the following information. This, and number 4 in that is evidence that at least a majority of the owners of parcels within the proposed district support designation owns of each parcel having 1 vote per parcel with a maximum of 1 vote per ownership entity, defined as in section 4-8.09. Then section 4-8.09, declaration of landmarks or historic districts. Council shall not make a designation if a majority or more of the owners or parcels within the proposed district, the owners of each parcel having 1 vote per parcel with a maximum of 1 vote per ownership entity, file a written protest against creation of a district. So, again, I was involved in how we were setting this up. Clear back when we were doing Taormina, I worked closely with those individuals. I've been involved with the council, with legal counsel from the very beginning. If we didn't need to go out and do a survey, I certainly wouldn't have given up 9 months of my life and caused all kinds of havoc in it, going out and contacting the wonderful people who are parcel owners, which gave me a little bit more interest in their things. So, and I asked Matt the different variations, and a week ago Tuesday when I talked to him, I mentioned that when we had 3 ad hoc people, we had 3 different layouts for the downtown historic district. One of those was the state historic district. I asked Matt if with it being a historic district, if we wanted to then use that, if the parcels in that property wanted to be a part of the different items which we're proposing for the historic district, if we would still need to contact them since they were part of a state historic district. He said for them to be the part of a local historic district, the parcel owners will need to be contacted also. And didn't surprise me, and Matt's counsel on that has been consistent ever since we started this whole process. So I'm sorry, I just don't understand why someone would think that we don't need a survey. And you know, it came back to whether we're making a nomination or a recommendation. When that question was put to me in an email, I turned to Mara and I asked Mara, are we doing a nomination or a recommendation? And she gave me an answer, and it jived exactly with what the code says. The fact that, yes, I don't remember. Sorry.
Is it a nomination or
I don't
is it a
remember.
recommendation?
Brian, can I read what I read on it? I mean, it differs from that.
Well, again, I will go back to Mara. That's what I got from Matt and talking to Matt repeatedly. That in fact we have to survey the parcel owners as we did before. But certainly, Craig. Go
Okay,
ahead.
because under 4805, which is the Historic Preservation Commission functions and powers, it says evaluation. the Historic Preservation Commission or Community Development Director may investigate any structure in the city which the council or planning commission or historic preservation commission has reason to believe should be declared an historic landmark, historic district, structure of merit, or point of historic interest. So we have that power to investigate, which is what we do, right? That's what we've done. And then under D, recommendations, if the conclusion of the Historic Preservation Commission is that an historic landmark, historic district, structure of merit, or point of historic interest does exist, which meets the criteria established in this chapter and should be declared as such, the Historic Preservation Commission shall make its recommendation to the council for timely deliberation. So that's what the power that's given to the commission is to evaluate, and then based on its evaluation and based on those criteria that the city has in the law that we're to consider, it shall make a recommendation to the council. Now, the owners can still object. They can still object to the council, and they can come before the council, and it says in there quite clearly that if a majority plus one of the property owners objects, writes a written objection, then it shall not become a historic district. So nobody's disputing that part of it, that the owners, if enough of them write a written objection, that then the historic district won't happen. But then under nominations, it says who can nominate. The HPC is not one of the groups that's listed as a nominating body. And the reason for that is because the nominations are made to us, that some citizen in the community or the owners of the Terramina, they nominate their neighborhood to us, and we're the ones that then evaluate it and send a recommendation to the council. So we don't nominate. But we do the recommending, and you can understand that if my neighborhood, if I went down and nominated my neighborhood, that the city would want to know that the other people that live there were behind this, right? That this was something they wanted. So under the nominations, it says that there needs to be evidence that there's a majority of the people are behind this for a nomination. But that isn't stated for the commission itself. The commission itself can, based on the merits of it and its own investigation, but otherwise we'd be spending all of our time if just somebody came to us and said they wanted to nominate. They'd have to give some evidence that this was something that the people wanted. So I just would love it if we could get Mr. Summers here, that we could talk to him about it and clarify that, because it does seem kind of silly, doesn't it, to have two votes. You have to have, the commission has to have two votes. Not one vote for the neighbors to say they want it and then one vote of objectors, but the way it's being interpreted is that we have to get 50% plus one to say they're behind it. Then it goes to the council, and then the owners can object. There's a second vote of the owners objecting. And if 51% of those say no, then it doesn't become a district. And that always seemed kind of strange to me, why we would have these two votes right in succession. But it makes sense when you realize that the one vote is the neighbors getting together and supporting it, and the second vote is individual property owners going to the council and objecting and giving their reasons. And if there's 51% of them, then they've got their number and it won't become a district.
Okay, so part of what we're doing and again, I've been to every council meeting. Part of what we were doing in starting, because we didn't, with Terramina, we had the Terramina group who actually did all of the legwork, all of the footwork. all of the talking to their neighbors, some of which agreed, some of which didn't agree. And then they came to the city with their polling data. And they presented that to the city. The city went through it, weighed it based on their crazy way of counting votes, which we, when we changed the code, corrected it. Just an example, if you owned a parcel in Terramina, you individually, you got 1 vote. If you and your wife jointly owned it, you got 2 votes. If you, your wife, your daughter, and your son equally held that property, you got 4 votes. And yeah, so we went over that with all of that area packed with them, with Matt Summers clarifying what we were doing. And then when we had the chance, we had changed it. Now, in that case, we had Terramina, who then made a recommendation to, or came to the Historic Preservation Commission. We then met on it, and then we made a nomination or a recommendation to the city council. And then it was the city council who decided on that. When we decided to do the Downtown Historic District, the Ojai Civic Center Historic District, we did not have a historical group that was outside that could have done this work. You know, if we had an Ojai Historical Society, they may have said, hey, let's landmark this property, and they would have done that legwork, and then they would have come to us and given us the same thing, but we didn't. And we took on, the HPC took on that responsibility to do that. We, at the very beginning, for the first 2 years of this process, we had what we called the ad hoc. We always referred to ourselves as the ad hoc. That ad hoc committee was Gina, myself, and Craig, who was not a commissioner at that time. So that's how the 3 of us could meet, okay? And it was the ad hoc who was going to do that legwork and did all of the publication of information, you know, the FAQs that were out there, talking with the residents. I talked to residents, and if I found someone who knew somebody, I took them along with me, just for a friendly face. And that's what we did. All of that was done working with the city council and reporting to the city council on the steps along that way. And people that I talked to, that we talked to, knew that we were asking them for their support for us, then the HPC, to go and make a recommendation to the city council. Nomination form given to the parcel owners to allow, and they would say, I support the nomination of the proposed downtown historic district. I do not support the nomination of the proposed downtown historic district. And they would check the box and they would send it in. Again, there was never anyone who said, we don't need a vote. We don't need to know what the parcel owners, it says clearly in the item that in the case, again, declarations of landmarks are historic districts. In the case of historic districts, the council shall not make a designation if a majority or more of the owners of parcels within the proposed district, the owners of each parcel having 1 vote per parcel with a maximum of 1 vote per ownership entity, file a written protest against creation of such a district. And that's what Craig just talked about. So.
But, you know, one of the things that I think we need to consider is the Downtown Historic District is placed on the California Register of Historic Resources by the state, and they honor it and they recognize it as a historic district. But when you put that requirement in of the vote just to recommend it, you have to have that vote. It really means, because a lot of these property owners don't even live in the city. They don't even live in the valley. They're investors that live outside.
I know where they live.
It's hard to get a hold of them, and so
It is.
if they don't vote, it's a no vote.
It is.
When you use a system like that. So that's what we're up against, is that it's hard getting them to respond. So if you go with the second vote, which I believe is actually the one required of us in the law, then they have to file a written objection, and that makes it a little more of effort for them to shoot it down, because they have to get 51% writing a letter in. But if they do, then the city should honor that.
So to write it down, they would have had to got 50% plus one
Right.
in order to do that. Everybody I talked to, I explained to them that it was a two-step process. I have talked to Matt numerous times, going through numerous issues, numerous steps, including asking him about the State Historic District and whether we would need to survey them. And he said, we're not surveying them on the State Historic District. We're surveying them because they are a part of our local historic district that we're putting forward. And Matt was very clear on that. So sorry, I'm just not going to spend more time
So,
on that.
if we're looking at our ad hocs,
Yes, so,
we have some people on here, some newer members who might have how long you've both been here in Ojai. That I know Loran has mentioned that you would like to reach out to some of these people. I think that forming a second ad hoc of either Rick and Loran or Loran and Craig would be really valuable to do that final reach out on people who Cindy or Brian did not have luck either contacting, or maybe they just didn't have, they didn't understand the information that they were.
so here's what I was allowed to do, and here's what I did. So if I was going to see somebody like Treasures of Ojai, I took Cindy Convery with me, then I went with that. If I was going to go see somebody else, we know who, and Loren knows her, then I would ask Loren to go with me. So I could take anyone with me as long as I didn't take a second person back to the same people. Because then it would have been 3 commissioners of the 5. So that's how it was worked out, that
Well,
I
I was
could
just-
go and bring people.
What I was thinking is, we're kind of on the finish line here where we're just solidifying this last thing. And if it has to be 2 commissioners finishing this, I think it is at the state where it's, you have so much of the information. If we focused on getting the nuts and bolts of it done, and the other commissioners worked on making sure that everybody has been contacted, and you let that go, you let them do that, and you and I focus on getting it tied in a bow here and doing what we have to do, it might be the best way, because we got to tie this up.
I'm sorry, but not going to happen.
Which one? Which way?
Me saying, oh, yeah, I've done 9 months, I'm not going to finish this job.
No, then I know that's why I said you and I finishing it, because that's where our focus is, and letting,
Well, I'm talking about reaching out to the individuals.
okay.
Yeah, I think that's something that I can go out and do, and I'm used to it. And and now that we have, additional people, and, I talked to Rick as soon as he came on, and talked to Loren as soon as she came on. So I just would like to, take Loren, she's a new voice, take her out and contact people. If there's other people, again, look for another commissioner that knows that person, to go out and reach out to them. That way it gives kind of a fan type thing, availability to do that. That worked well.
So that's really you being in your own ad hoc sort of thing, like we were talking about before, about you,
Well,
like
yeah,
you having
yeah.
this one and then you fan out. So then it would, okay.
Yeah, I was in lots of ad hocs before, but only on a 1-to-1 with the commissioners. So,
Okay.
yeah, that's what I feel comfortable with. And, getting to know the different people that are in here. I think with a new group of people that we can tie into these people. There's many reasons why people didn't say yes to going and being with them. One was They didn't live in the city and they hated the city, but they owned businesses in the city. And they told us firsthand that they weren't. I was threatening to visit them in Palm Springs when I was there last December, but didn't. But yeah, it is difficult. I mean, one of them is a granddaughter who's in a trust, and so I ended up talking to the attorney up there. He talked to the granddaughter. Granddaughter said, fine. A lot are older people. I'm an older person, so I get to say that. That just aren't going to pick up the phone, and because it's something different. The other thing is that I worked with some of the realtors in town to ask them, what's the best way to get a hold of these people and what is their biggest concern about downtown. So that helped. So that's why I'm kind of particular about that, is that of the people I've probably contacted, if I went to 70%, I've contacted 70, 80% on that. So I just think that's where I would be most helpful rather than figuring out all the ins and outs. I mean, that's what you enjoy. That's what Craig enjoys. The nitty gritty things, and then translating it into something that others help. When all of that information, so when I was setting up appointments, I sent them all of the information, and this will be interesting, and I even sent them a clip of one of our meetings. And that clip was when Barbara Bowman came here, and we talked to her for an hour and 15 minutes about what exactly are we talking about. Because if people said, well, what's this all about? I could show them our discussions with Barbara Bowman, who was, honestly one of our biggest critics, if you go by the paper. And so it was fabulous, actually. So now that we've got the big part, the hurdle on the structures of merit, and I applaud each of you and appreciate your votes and what you shared, and wish us luck going forward. And I will be at the council meeting, of course. I would just like us to focus on moving that forward.
So I have a question. Are you going to go back and revisit those people that said no?
So here's what my mantra was. If somebody sent me a no letter, but I never talked to them, I went back and found them and introduced myself as though they had never sent anything in. Okay? And said, hey, could you set up some time where I could come and, first of all, could I get your email address and can I send you information? And for the most part, they said yes. The guy at the Chevron station over here downtown, sent him all the information. He looked at every bit of it, including that hour-long video, and he said, no. But hey, I'm selling the place anyway, so maybe good luck the next time. So people were receptive, but to answer your question, yes. If I went to them and they said no to me, I would wait a while until we had something new. Like we had new information that came. We have new information with Craig, because last year when he came on board, he did a draft overlay for what would be the Downtown Historic District, which is one of the things we had said we would do. I also made sure that I didn't make any promises that I couldn't keep. And if I got questions for any answer I could, Mark can tell you, I was like, oh, I talked to so-and-so. So tell me about solar panels on the top of one of these businesses. I learned that we have no control over solar panels. That's all California. So
my question is, say you brought up Mr. Roby, who sold his gas station. So now you have a new owner.
Yes.
And you have there's one more vote, maybe.
Yes.
So you will go back to him.
Yes.
And those people, there are a few I know who will never change their mind, no
Of
matter
course.
what you do. Maybe some of those that might change their mind, we might have two new people go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Two new people that they've never dealt with before. I mean, sometimes that works. It's
Oh, yeah.
different, personalities, different,
Oh, yeah.
different that. So I'm just throwing that into the ring.
Sure.
I just think that because this has been such a long process, when we started out, once again, it goes back to my bubble theory, and then the bubble gets bursted when you start talking to other people. That's so much more education happened after our initial time that we reached out to people. So many classes that we've all taken, so much information, like the overlay and like all of the different benefits that we solidified. If I feel that there's somebody out there who is walking around with incorrect information, that maybe a no vote was a knee-jerk reaction to a fear-based, I think it's our responsibility to give them the most current information. If there's still a no, that's fine, but I think it's our responsibility to go, we learned this, we need to let you know that, and then if they still say no, no. But we can't just let somebody, it's almost like so many of those are almost null and void at this point, because there's so much more that we have found out that's helpful to, one of the things that I think we all wanted to really focus on was being helpful to property owners and understanding rising costs and understanding what happened with COVID and restaurants and stores and all of this stuff, and not putting any burden on a property owner. And so we just kept trying to learn as much as we can to make it so it wasn't a burden to be a part of a district. And I think that over the last year, we've learned so much more, and it's our responsibility to let those property owners know what we've learned.
I agree completely. So the other thing is, we did this when we had 5 commissioners, actually 4, I think, at one time. So if we get 6 commissioners, then we could have 3 people involved in that process. So if you went with someone completely new, then you could do that. If there was follow-up or questions and you wanted me to go with you, then we could do that. We just couldn't take a 4th person to that individual. So, I mean, my goal all along has been to get to 6 and 7 commissioners so that we can, have larger ad hoc committees. And so.
So it is going to be, Craig and I will stick with our nuts and bolts and try to massage out the last of the details. You are going to then reach out to the final, Craig and I are going to communicate to you through Maura, when we finally come up with that final map, whether it's the downtown, the state, the original one that we presented, or the different one that I had suggested. If we, once we finalize what we think is the best of that, then we go through Maura to you guys to sit there and say, okay, who's in there and who's been reached and who can we talk to? That would go to you, right?
Yeah.
Are you alone, or do you want to have somebody with you on your ad hoc at all times? Like, do you want to have, like, would you rather?
No.
So you want to be the ad hoc?
Well, I want to be able to take people with me who will have benefit.
And that will hinder you if you have somebody on that ad hoc with you, because
If
then
someone who just says, hey, can I join you today? Well, that may eliminate them from
okay.
going and seeing someone else. Again, that pool will be expanded when we get 6 commissioners.
Got it. Okay.
So we're working on that.
So that is then a slight adjustment, because at the last meeting that we had Sonia here, you were back on the ad hoc with Craig and I. So now we
Right,
need
but
to
that
let-
wasn't beginning to reach out again. That was
Right.
still trying to get everything.
But so we
in
need
line.
to let more know that it's now just back to being Craig and you, and then Craig and I, and then you are going to do the reach out.
And
in
then I have
your fanned reach out.
my wing people here.
Yeah.
Who know more people than even I.
Okay. So do we need to let you know that, or there's an ad hoc.
So we have an ad hoc change, and the ad hoc change is going to be Gina and Craig doing nuts and bolts.
Doing what we need to do to finish this up.
And,
Yeah, updating the
And then,
information.
Brian, or Chair, you're going to be taking one at a time to meet with the public and never repeating that public with a different person.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
But then it might be just Rick and I.
Correct.
At certain times.
Right, it would just be,
Well,
it would just be
It-
Commissioner Sims and Chair, or Chair and Commissioner Basasha.
To different people.
It's different people, right. So whoever Commissioner takes you to see, he cannot take
No,
Commissioner Basasha to see.
I understand that, but
Or
I'm,
could you take, if you take
No.
Rick to see somebody,
No.
you couldn't take me to see
no,
them.
I know, but
Okay.
what I was saying, there may be a few people that we need to work on a little bit, not work on, but, have.
Educate.
And in a different, I don't even know how to say this, in a different way, where Rick and I have lived here for so long.
I agree.
And know so many, that it would be better that if he agreed with this, that it would be the two of us that went out.
No,
Yeah.
So Commissioner Sims is suggesting that she go perhaps with Commissioner Basasha
Right.
and not with the Chair.
Yeah, that's fine.
And there are probably not many of those, but that's just a suggestion. I'm trying to get this thing through too.
Yeah. Well, again, it helps. I know these people. I didn't know them, but I know them now, and I know why they said no, because we took notes, and it's in the spreadsheet that we kept up today. Although I will tell you, I'm not a fan of Google Works Excel package.
No, it's just the way that document just kept getting longer.
So that's what I'm proposing. Are there other questions or on this? I
So,
don't know.
in order to discuss
We
who's
still didn't do
going
public
to,
comments.
who's going to see which person, the three of you can't discuss that among the three of you,
No.
because that would be a majority. And
Right.
so, if you're going to be splitting up that list somehow, then it's to be done here in an agendized meeting. I'm sorry?
The only
Done
time we
through
could
you.
update each other is in this meeting.
I'm sorry.
I'm saying if do they need to do anything through you in between meetings?
That's true. You can do things through me, and I
Mara
Send
knows
out-
all of our secrets.
No, there are no secrets. I send out blind copies, emails, so you can't reply to me as in a group. So to respect the Brown Act, or to follow the Brown Act. Okay, yes, we're good.
Okay, we good on Ojai Civic Center Historic District. Sorry, I was visualizing the letters. Seriously. Okay, moving on to item number 4, future agenda items.
As you see in your packet, for June 13th, it'll be time for the commission to begin discussions for potential recipients of the 2024 Annual Historic Preservation Award, and assign commissioners to provide biographies to review at the next meeting, which would be July 11th. And then we still have the Ojai Civic Center District, Historic District, and Structures of Merit on the agenda, so you can keep discussing those and give updates as to what's going on there.
Okay,
And what about wasn't this the meeting to
we're getting there.
do the vote of? Okay.
That's the next item.
Okay, so that's it for future agenda items?
Yes.
Do you want to talk about what we have at the end of the agenda, or in the same section?
What was 5?
It's 5, but without a number 5.
Well, that was just planning report.
Let's see, just a second. Okay, so actually, I'm gonna just, I'm going to speak for a moment. I don't have really a planning report, but I'm going to kind of blend that with the commissioner comments, even though I'm not a commissioner. And other than commissioner comments from you, at the end of your packet here, after item 4, doesn't have a number 5, there are documents regarding commissioner seats that, and this was submitted by Chair Akins, and so I'll let him I'll open it up to you.
Okay, thank you. So going to commissioner comments, I just wanted to complete one item that I think got truncated a bit last time, and that is to recognize Vice Chair McHatton as our liaison for education. Is that the title you had? See, I remember some things. So I don't think we quite got to that. I am very appreciative of the 3 courses that we took. As I said, I watched the one today, and, you know, to be able to go in and zoom in, there was just so much good information in that. It's just, these are the ones we did. Did you enjoy that?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, my gosh. I'm like, where were they 10 years ago? So anyway, if everybody's okay with Gina being our liaison of education? Okay, that's an
I
affirmative.
just want to be able to, if I see something, to be able to, do I still have to reach out to you, and then you'll let them know? Yeah, okay.
Okay, and then the HPC terms. So we were going to have an election. If you go back to our future agenda items, just last month, we were going to, but they were nipped in the bud, as we've seen in the past, because as of tomorrow, and as of right now, we have commissioners whose terms have ended. And so we didn't have a full commission in order to do the nominations. Is that correct? And we won't have a full commission until,
You have a full commission, because until it goes to council, you're all still in your seats, and you can still stay in your seats, and we have a quorum. However, until that process happens, that you fill out your forms to say that you still want to be on the HPC, and it's opened up to the public, and the city council does their interviews and thus and such, and you have your seats, perhaps plus one, or another one, then you can do your recommendations that you're talking about right now.
we can do our recommendations that we're talking about?
Well, that, you were talking about making a recommendation for chair and vice chair, is that what you were
No.
talking about?
No.
So I'm sorry, what were you
I
talking about?
was just trying to figure out, I know why we didn't do the nominations, but I didn't think we were doing the nominations tonight because we were waiting to have a full commission.
Right, but because some of your seats are up. Is that what you're
Yes.
saying?
Yes.
Right, but just because your seats are up, you can still be coming to meetings even at the next.
Oh, no, yeah,
Yeah,
I
you
agree
get to
with
still, you get
that.
to hold your seat until you don't.
Well, now, I talked to Weston
Mhm.
on the phone yesterday about all this, and he said, don't do anything. There's changes at city council. And don't do anything. Don't send in any paperwork, just wait.
Okay,
I
then.
don't, maybe, you probably know more than I do.
No, actually, I don't, so just wait.
Okay,
I
And
think it's
it
on the
sounds,
agenda for Tuesday, isn't it, for the council?
no,
just wait.
the commissions, the commission part, but nominations, yeah, there's a whole new
Commissions.
Yeah, I have it in my
Yeah.
packet here.
So,
Just like that.
just wait was good direction, and you'll be informed.
Okay, so happily, I ran into council member Rule the other day. Same day I ran into Laurel, I got to introduce them. And I asked council member Rule if she could come to the meeting and share with us what she may know about the process going forward in reappointing commissioners. And then we got a bit of a bubble that popped up this morning. And so, Councilmember Rule, would you join us and share with us what insight you might have? We appreciate you staying with us.
Oh, no, it was incredibly interesting, actually. I feel quite informed and educated.
Good. We do too.
I would be happy to have a conversation with any one of you at any time as to what I see and think will come about with the process of either the Civic Center Historic District and or the structures of merit. Having given it some thought, and after having sitting here, I'd be happy to share that with you at your convenience. As far as the commissions go, as you know, we have had a series of kerfuffles and problems with process, even though we thought that we had established a process. The process was not followed, and because of that, and because of the disarray of the council and the council's ability to work together and or even agree to meet together to work together, we will be reevaluating how commissions are. We will once again be reevaluating how commissioners and commissions move forward. So on the agenda is a model that we rejected, and I don't, at the last time, because we did this however many months ago it was, in December probably, after we tossed out a commissioner, we reassessed how commissions would be nominated, and then there was kerfuffle with the Arts Commission, and then there was kerfuffle in the nomination process for the Planning Commission, and nothing but kerfuffles. So, and I use that term, it was way more than a kerfuffle, in my opinion, but that having been said, it was what it was. So the city manager asked the city attorney to please come up with a potentially different model, and the city attorney has come up with one which is in the agenda. It is a model that we rejected the last time it came up. It was not a model that seemed to suit. Brian was a part of that discussion, explaining to us that, if we did adopt this model, basically we would be having new commissioners, some every 2 years, some every 4 years, depending on who, nominated and who, and it just would be a mess. But that's the model that we will be discussing on Thursday. So as it stands now, we don't have a model, hence Weston's, and I had also queried him about what the process would be, based on a very specific, Councilmember Lang had appointed this person, and this person had served, but not for long, and who would be appointing the replacement, and how would the scheduling of the council members then happen. And I attempted to get clarification on that, and I got the same answer, is that it is an agenda item on Thursday and do nothing. I'm happy to say he didn't say nothing. He just said do nothing. We don't know. So it is really conceivable that the entire process will go through another mutation. It's entirely possible that we will agree that there can be minor adjustments to the ordinance that would keep things from happening again that happened last time or the time before or whenever it did happen. So in other words, we might be doing a what they call a fix-it to ordinances. Like, you don't understand that this is actually what's going to occur. So you do a second ordinance. It's very normal in California state law that you clean things up. It's called a cleanup ordinance, I think. Maybe we just change everything and we go for the simplest thing, which is, everybody gets booted at the end of the person, every 4 years. I appointed you. I'm no longer on council. Ciao, baby. Or, of course, you can always put your application in and potentially. So we don't really know is how it goes. But you can read in the agenda what the model that we will be starting from, which is that each council member appoints one commission member. If there's a 7-body commission, then the mayor would appoint 2, and a rotating council member would appoint another, or some such thing. TBD. So right now, nobody's going to be appointing any commissioners.
Where are you going to get these people from, since there are not very many people that want to volunteer anymore?
Well,
to
that
do
is one of
any
the,
this?
very, very good
Makes me
question.
feel like I've given 7 months of my life and goodbye.
Yes, and
That's not right.
that is why we did not adopt
Well,
the
it's
model.
true.
No, that's why we didn't adopt the model in the first place, which is, so yes, we rejected that model because it makes no sense at all. But yet it is the model we're starting from. It doesn't mean it's the model that we're going to end up with. Like I said, if it were my druthers, and I hope, God knows if I should even be saying this, I would do a cleanup to the existing model that would prevent some things from happening again. That would be my druthers. But once again, I am one of 5, and 3 votes of the council decides whatever 3 votes of the council wants to decide. And that is the way it is. So I hope that I have given you an overview of what I understand. I didn't even, when you and I first spoke, I did not understand this was even going to be on the agenda. It was on a future agenda item in some way, shape, or form. But anyway, so that's where we stand. And nobody wants anybody to feel like they've given 7 months of their... We had this discussion ad nauseum, as our council does. We did. We had this discussion, and we had it again, and we had it again. And here we are. We're going to have it again. And I apologize. I apologize to every commissioner. I apologize to everybody who has to sit through it. But that's where we are. And just to know, I think individually, every council member so appreciates the commissioners who are willing to give of their time and energy, and most especially of their expertise. And this is not a situation that any council member would choose or, in any way have a commissioner feel devalued. It is reflective of our dysfunction, not yours. So please live with that. And I hope that we will be able to solve this in a way that does not minimize what you believe your contribution is, because it is great. It is great. You all work very hard for us, and you give of your time, your energy, and your expertise, and it's so appreciated. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions. I'm also happy. Yes, sir.
I have a question. When you were talking about considerations about how you would choose people or why you would renew them, et cetera, did it also come up that, well, yes, we do have expertise, but also it takes a long time to get up to speed on this stuff?
Of course.
So if you did? Okay.
That was part of the discussion, first time around. I mean, the HPC, you guys, there's a huge ramp up. I mean, you have ordinances and regulations that you need to know, but particularly the Planning Commission, for instance. My guess would be it takes years on the Planning Commission to understand, to understand the ins and outs and the nuances of the code, and not to have mentors who have been there, like Brian or like Steve Quillisi, who understand the code and who can help bring people up to speed on the code or give them, some background or some support. But once again, that's why this model that, is just so unworkable, in my opinion, because of the amount of time that it takes to ramp up with these kinds of things.
Okay, great. I'm glad that you.
Yeah.
You,
and we've had
addressed
that discussion.
Okay,
We've-
great.
But here we are again. So here we are again. And happy to take any other questions that you might have. Yes.
You said you had some insight on what you think the council will do with what we're doing, and that we could come and talk to you about that.
Yeah, I would be happy to do that.
Can you share it as so we don't each individually have to come and see you?
I'm not completely comfortable because I'd rather it be an exchange back and forth so I can ask questions, being somewhat privy to this process, but not deeply. Really, the structures of merit was new to me, and the nuances and the differences between the structures of merit and the historic district was not something that I was aware of. But, constituents come to me, all the time, and they will, either voice, pros or cons or concerns. And so in a conversation, I can ask you and you can kind of tell me back. Whereas if I were to state here, number one, I probably would look like an idiot, which is not that problematic. But I'd rather it be a conversation and a shared understanding and a co-creation of what we're talking about.
I'll make sure I reach out behind
I know
you.
we got that coffee. We got that coffee date that we never
Yeah.
had that we must have.
We live behind each other.
I know, right? We do. It's stone's throw right over.
Yeah.
So anyway, my deepest thanks to all of you. Your concern and love for what you do and historic preservation comes through incredibly clearly, regardless of whether or not people follow the path that you lead. Your commitment comes through. And, honestly, you're making sense. That's all I can say. So anyway, I'm happy to answer any other questions that you might have.
Well, I just want to tell you thank you, and that Rick and I already have our applications filled out, so. I'm like, oh, you have yours.
You're young. You're early in the game anyway, right? You're 7 months down the road. No. Oh no?
No, mine expired.
She
I
got
was-
it
Oh,
in
were
a
you-
short term. She came.
Oh,
in
you
on
were
her
you were a replacement.
Which I didn't understand when I was voted in. I thought that because during that meeting, you talked about all this, and it was like, okay, we're going to decide now it's 4 years and on and on. So when this came up, what are they talking about?
Right. Yeah. No, I totally get that.
So then I called Weston and said, do you want me to bring this to you? And he
Yeah,
said, please
yeah.
don't.
Please don't. Well, I think all will become clear, if not this Thursday, certainly by the following Thursday. And I do not have a Brown Act buddy on this, so I have not discussed this with anybody else. So we shall see.
Yep.
Shall be a public discussion.
See you Tuesday
Feel
night.
free to come and make public comment as well. Take your 3 minutes or 2 minutes, whatever it ends up being, and suggest to us what makes the most sense, because I think, honestly, commissioners will carry a lot of weight in how this is decided. I will point out that only one of the council members has been on a commission, and I'm not sure that was a full 4 years. So, and a couple of us have no municipal experience short of serving on the council. So, come. It will make a difference. It will make a difference.
Sounds good.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for your work. So it is very, very, very much appreciated.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate that.
Yes.
Okay.
So are we done with commissioner comments? Because I did want to,
Not unless you have something that you want to add.
I just wanted to come back around to what I was saying about the one sheet that was created for the structures of merit, that I
Yes.
would like to have everybody's permission to come back at the next meeting with one that's just for everybody who currently has a landmark, whether it's in a district like Taramino or if it's one of our landmarks on not future or maybe, or if it gets approved, but the actual landmarks. I just want to make sure that they all know about the historic or the California Historical Building Code.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great idea that you suggested,
I
and
could come back
getting that
next-
out to them.
Okay.
So when would we have the opportunity to look at it? Should we take what's in our package and then make changes and forward
Well-
those to? I know you had something that you wanted to add,
Yeah, we're
Craig.
talking about two things. That's yes, to do change, anybody has any ideas, just go through Maura. But I meant, can I bring one for our landmarks?
Oh,
that-
yeah,
at
this
the
is
next
Structures
meeting?
of Merit. Yes, I think that would be excellent.
Okay.
And if,
And, right, and so you can contact me about the deadline to get that to me prior to the packet, and it's gonna be a short deadline because our meeting next month is back to the normal,
Right.
we'll be on our normal schedule with second Thursday.
And what is the language? It hasn't been reviewed?
I'll put the language on.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so if you can send a Word document, that would be great.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right.
okay. Anything else? Craig? No? Lorraine? Rick?
No.
Gina? Sweet. Okay. We're done. Where's David? Thank you again, everyone. That was big progress tonight, so,
As I always do, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Appreciate the meeting. Thank you so much. Thank you.
oh, thank you for being here.
And yes, thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, you bet.